Hey, pro organizers, it's Melissa. I first brought you a podcast with a brand new organizer. Her name is Kim Snodgrass. She was just starting a business called Rustic Home Organizing. And a year later, I was like, hey, do you want to hop back on the podcast and just give an update on what your first year was like? And then we did an update on what her second year was like. And now we are back with the update of her third year, going into her fourth year of being an organizer. And these are some of the most popular episodes that I put out. People frequently ask me about them or talk to me about them. And so I wanted to make sure that we did another update. We're a little bit later on it than we usually are. But Kim is heading into her fourth year as an organizer. And every single year, she has had some major epiphanies about things she's learned about herself as an entrepreneur, about herself as a person, all of those things. And this year is no exception. So, this conversation, I will say, is very honest, very raw, very vulnerable. And we might say some things that you totally disagree with. This was more like a conversation than anything else. We might say some things that you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know anyone else felt that way. And that's really our goal is we want to be really honest about some of the trials and tribulations as well as the great things about being an organizer. The other thing I would say is there is a little bit of salty language in here. That's how Kim and I roll. And I understand if that's not for you, but what I told someone one time who got annoyed at me on my Instagram because I used a salty word. I was like, I'm almost 50 years old and this is just how I talk. If you're newer to the podcast or if you haven't heard Kim's past podcasts, I will link them in the show notes because it really is fun to hear her progression. And especially if you are at a different point in your organizing career, it might help you to hear a brand new person and then a person with 3 solid years of experience under their belt. All right. I hope that you have an absolutely fabulous week. And here is my conversation with Kim. All right, you ready?
Okay. Yeah, I'm ready.
I've said it 8 million times, but I'm going to say it again. The stuff we talk about before we hit record is better than most of the stuff we talk about on the podcast.
Yes.
I think the things we talk about on the podcast are pretty good.
I agree. I agree.
But yeah, we should probably, I mean, that should be like Patreon content. Like if you want the behind the scenes to hear about the weird things we were discussing before we hit record, might be paid content.
Yeah, today was juicy, I'll say.
So I would like to welcome back my dear friend and like 55 billion time podcast collaborator, Kim Snodgrass from Rustic Home Organizing. How are you?
I am so good. I know I kind of feel like I've worn out my welcome just a little bit.
It's not true. Let me tell you why that's not true. Because the other day, what we're doing today is we're doing your year 4 recap and or year 3
Year
recap,
3
year 4
going into
looking
4.
forward, right? And so I have done this with you since you were a baby organizer. We've done it every year since then, and we usually do it in January. And I had someone DM me the other day, sassing me and being like, where is the Kim yearly business update? And I was like, well, pardon, I'm sorry, we're running late with it. So you have not worn out your welcome. And in fact, people like the podcast episodes with you are some of the best downloaded. So people love you. So I should probably
Love
just
it.
get the podcast over to you. You just do it.
No, I do not want that, but thank
Okay.
you. I appreciate the offer.
I'll put you in my will as the owner of the podcast, if anything changes.
Please don't.
So, well, I'm happy to welcome you back because I know I know because I know you that you have a lot going on, but I want you to just talk about some of the things you have going on. And I will put it in the show notes, but I'll put all of the prior episodes so you can hear baby organizer Kim and 1 year Kim and 2 year Kim. And it is fun to hear your progression, but I'm excited for the year 3 update.
Well, I am too, because I'm not sure what's going to come out of my mouth, but
My
I'm
favorite.
also feeling like I should probably go back and re-listen to myself
Yeah.
and see if I was so off point in certain areas or if I kind of saw this year coming. So to back up, January just took off like a freight train. I mean, I got sick in December per usual,
Yes.
and then
Kim gets sick every
everything.
December. So what happened? Let me just back up really quickly. Kim always says, I'm going to take December off. And then Kim doesn't take December off. And then she gets super, super sick and then ends up having to take December off anyway.
Yeah. Literally every single year. It happened again this year was pneumonia. So last January, just like shot out the starting line and business was just like flowing, like fire hydrant flowing. I did more in my first 4 months of last year than I did the previous year.
Okay, let's
So,
just stop a minute. So basically in one quarter, in a third of the year, you did the revenue that you did in the entire year prior. That's a big
mhm.
deal.
Oh yeah, I was feeling like the shit.
Yeah.
Like I have got this figured out.
I have it
And
dialed in and under control.
yep, all that hard work, all of laying my foundations, all of my networking, all of my behind the scenes, and just my hard work because I take pride in my work. And then I really truly don't know what happened, but I do know what didn't happen. And that was more business after
Mhm.
that point. And I know I was distracted because I had my youngest daughter's 21st birthday. We had a big party at the house. And then we were rolling straight from that. That was July 13th. We were rolling straight into my middle daughter's wedding, which was here in town as well. And she was coming from Boston. So we had a lot of people. But I think looking back, I realize that I think I started to take my foot off the gas back in May. And when I say take my foot off the gas, I stopped networking as much. I didn't send the email newsletters out. And if I did, it was here's just a quick one. There was no like love or passion behind it. Now,
You were
I do want to take,
distracted.
I do want to take one thing back because I did send out one email newsletter that I booked like my whole month
I
off one
remember
email.
that. You,
Yeah.
yeah, you said
So
you the entire month of August or something in one email.
something like I did get that. And that was good. It was just not obviously enough for an entire year's worth of business. But I learned a lot with having that big chunk. I learned that you have to really manage that and you have to stretch that if you know you're going into a season of distraction, because that's what I was doing. I didn't realize how distracted I was going to become, and I got very distracted. And I'll be very honest, I've probably played the I'm busier than I am game. I'll be super honest. So, wanting people on the outside looking in, thinking that I still am, while I kind of figured out what in the world's going on here. Why is business so slow? And don't love that. But then I also did love it.
Yeah,
I had a few minutes of, ooh, maybe I don't love organizing in people's homes as much as I used to.
right.
Because when I would get an inquiry, it would be like, what is it though? Do I really want that? I was getting pickier and pickier. So I know I'm shooting all over the place,
You're
but
fine.
I just kind of need to recap here briefly before we start diving into different subjects that my full third year was the weirdest year ever.
Yeah.
My busiest time, my slowest time, my most reflection time, the most I learned. It's like it's a cesspool of shit. And I'm not 100% sure like what I took from it, but it was a lot.
Yeah. I don't know if the title of this podcast can be a cesspool of shit, but that is
You
the
can.
contender for the title anyway.
Yeah.
So said so many important things there. And one of them that I would like to kind of noodle on a little bit or whatever is the taking your foot off the gas. Like things are going great. Therefore, I can just coast.
Coast.
And you can for a while. Coasting
Not very
works
long.
for a little bit, but unfortunately, it doesn't work for infinity. There are some things that you can coast on, but unfortunately, every business takes care and work.
Well, and if
And
you think about coasting down on a bike, right? Yeah, you start to all of a sudden you start to lose that momentum. What do you have to do? You have to like pedal
oh,
really fast. So when you hop back into your business, you're hopping on a hamster wheel that you're like, oh crap, I got to hit the ground running here. I can't
yeah,
just like ease back in.
right. Well, and I think the other thing too is there are just some very basic things that you can do to keep things going. But when you stop everything at once,
Hmm.
then that also, accelerates that like, oh, at the bottom of the hill, it becomes a harder hill to start pedaling back up again too.
Yes, it does. And per my usual in when was it? Gosh, we're already into almost March. Crap.
We are, yeah, March.
I did the typical Kim thinking I needed to apply for jobs and give my resumes.
You
I think
did.
I talk about it every year too.
Yeah,
Um,
every year you have a
yep.
couple of crisis points where you will text
Mhm.
me and you will go, "Hey, I've decided to throw it all in. I'm
I
going to
think I
start
did
applying
again.
for jobs." And typically when that happens, I don't know if it's like the speaking it into the universe thing, then like 2 weeks later you'll be like, well, I have more people booked than I've ever had in my entire business. Carry on. But
Yes,
you have those crises points, I think, a couple times of the year.
I do. And it happened again this year, but I've noticed a pattern. I apply for the exact same job in the exact same company every year, and I think they've caught on because
Interesting.
this year I didn't even get an interview.
This year they were like, "Sorry, we've been on this roller coaster with you
We see
before."
this resume come through every year at the same time.
That's hilarious. I did not know
Yep.
that it was the same place.
Yeah, I've never told anybody that. And
Oh, okay.
I've actually one time I got an offer, and then one time I got an interview, and then I turned down the interview. This year, I didn't even get the interview. So
That's
I think
hilarious.
when I reapply for wherever next year, I've got to find somebody new to
Yeah.
apply
When you have that crisis, you're going to have to
when I
find a
have
new
my
place to send your
crisis.
application in.
Yeah. And I'm going to be super honest. Business is not super amazing right now. I don't love the clients I'm getting. I've turned down quite a few. I really have gotten comfortable at home, and that's not a good place to be unless
Mm,
I can figure out how to make money from home.
right.
But I have realized how hard organizing is on your body.
Yeah.
And it's been nice not having the aches and the pains and crawling around in people's dirt, and lots of reflection going on. Lots of reflection for sure. And I
Oh,
figuring out what part of it I love. And I think I'm honing in on something, and we can talk about that when you're ready,
yeah.
but it's yeah, definitely a year. It was a year.
I have been through some of those same periods of like, I think I'm tired of organizing. And this is, we're
Mhm.
being very vulnerable and we're being very honest. Like, there
Oh,
are
sure.
times where you go, I'm tired of people's stuff. I'm tired of having to,
People.
yeah, I'm tired of people,
Yeah.
or I'm just tired. That's
Mhm.
another thing. I think part of it is, as we discussed on our prior podcast about perimenopause and menopause, aging makes a difference there too. But I think that you said something important there, which is being picky about clients. And when I think about the clients that I took at the beginning of my business versus the clients that I take now, I am much more judicious about who I'm willing to work with.
Mhm.
And I think you hone in on there are certain projects that I just say, I'm really sorry, I don't think I'm the right fit for that, but I'd love to give you a referral to someone else who would be
Mhm.
thrilled to have that client. And I'm not sending them bad clients. I'm just sending them clients that are in the Marie Kondo parlance, not sparking joy for me.
Right. Exactly.
Do you find that when you do get picky, are they still, when you go, are they projects that you do enjoy, or are they still like, I'd rather be home on my couch? I mean, by the way, I'd almost always rather be home on my couch.
Right. That's a really good question. So, one thing we haven't mentioned is that I decided once upon a time on one day in this last September that I wanted to have a Women's Day, a whole big day.
Yeah.
And what started out as a thought of having a Chamber of Commerce women's luncheon for maybe 25 women is now at a venue of 200. And so I have been planning that, and that has stretched me quite thin,
Hmm.
and is not a moneymaker. But what it made me realize was that even though in my previous couple years, how much I told you I hated learning things,
Hmm.
I'm finding now that I'm okay learning things, and I'm okay learning things that once made me super technologically frustrated. I'm getting a little bit better at it. And it's also made me realize that my true passion, I think, is supporting other women in their life journeys. And I just happen to do that through being in their homes and organizing. But what I was hearing was the same things over and over. These women feeling stuck in their lives. And it wasn't just about the clutter that was around them. That clutter I felt was a byproduct of being unhappy with just their own self-worth and what they allowed themselves to enjoy in life and what gifts they brought to themselves. And that is what I have felt that my ideal client is
Mhm.
somebody that is almost struggling personally. The clutter is just a byproduct.
Yeah.
And so having that time to sit and talk, and I'm not a counselor and I'm not a certified coach or anything like that, but I got really excited about reaching not just one or two women in their homes, but 200. So my ideal client is somebody that is open to learning and listening and rediscovering themselves. And so I'm trying to figure out how to incorporate that into my organizing business. So
Yeah.
that I'm in a little bit of a I don't know what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. Well, and I think for you, you feel better trying to kind of figure that out as you go. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I feel like you're
Yes.
better kind of learning that on the fly than sitting down and like really thinking about it, right? Like you have to learn by doing that, like,
Oh
hey,
yeah.
this is the client that I want, and this is a client that I want.
Yeah, I don't learn the other way. That's not an option. I have to hands-on, full mistakes, terrible moves and turns, and all of this stuff. So, and I wonder if other women in this industry and Michael, I wonder if they were all just super honest and just sat down and talked about like what challenges each year brought. I just can't help but wonder if there would be a pattern in what you learn in each year in your business and
Yeah.
how it presents itself. So, yeah, not that I want to quit business. I love being in business. I think I'm excited about how it evolves.
Mhm.
And that's a lot of what this conference that I'm having is about, is allowing yourself to move and pivot and not feel ashamed and not feel like you have not succeeded, but you're just growing. And I firmly believe that we all take steps in life that lead us to where we're supposed to be at that certain time. So I'm definitely doing something. I just don't know what it is.
Well, I think you have tried a lot of new things too. You have really been someone who said, I want to go all in on XYZ and I want to, like, you started a podcast with your daughter and now you're doing this conference and, you have done other things. You have done organizing related
Mhm,
seminars.
mhm.
You've tried a lot of things and you have said, like, I just want to give it a try and see whether I like it or not. And I think that's
Mhm.
important because otherwise, I do think you can reach a point of burnout of some people really enjoy doing the same thing over and over again. I don't think you're one of those people, and I'm not one of those people either.
No, but I like that you bring up that point because it's a little bit of a concern of mine is that why do I keep wanting to hop around? What am I either avoiding or why am I bored or what, like, why is that? Or is it all a good thing? Is it me just like, okay, nope, ready for the next thing? It's my concern for myself is that I'm taking my eye off the ball a little bit. And we all have to make money if we're going to put the time and energy into doing something from home or being our own business owners. Otherwise, you're just a professional hobbyist. And
Yep.
that wasn't what I got into to do this, but I find myself possibly going down that path. And that's not a path I want to go down. So a lot of self reflection and figuring out how to make it work.
Yeah. I think that there are different like I appreciate that you're asking the question because you don't want to be someone who's just serially like squirrel. Like every 3 months you're trying something different, right? Like
Mhm.
there's that. And then there is, I really am seeking the thing that truly lights my fire, like for the long term. But some
Yeah.
people, you may be one of those people that just like, I really do need a new challenge every year. I need something different so that I can continue, with my main thing.
Well, I need to find a challenge though that does not prevent sleep and eating and all of the things and
That's
the
a fact.
stress and all of that. A lot of pressure. But I And so a lot of what this conference is that I'm having is about our progression and how we're getting from when you hear stories about women, men, it doesn't matter. Like they talk about, I'm standing here today because we all think it's this overnight success. But when you hear their story, this started like maybe when they were 16 years old. And
Yes.
then you kind of see how the story slowly unfolds. My hope right now is that I'm going to be able to see my story clearly sooner than later because what I'm doing, the steps I'm taking, I feel so incredibly passionate about. I feel so incredibly pulled to do that I just can't shake it. So I really hope there's some sort of pot of gold at the end for me on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I admire and value about you is that you see these things that you want to do, and you might be afraid of is there a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, or is there a
Yeah.
lion or
Mhm.
something
Or
else,
fire
right?
breathing dragon waiting for me.
Who knows, right? There is no unicorn. The unicorn has been torched by a dragon. I don't know. But
Exactly.
you see those things and you're like, you know what? But I still want to see them through. And you and I are a little bit similar in that we kind of leap and then we try to figure it out. And I
Throw
think
me a
that
parachute.
it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. But that's a true entrepreneurial spirit that you have in saying, you know what, I see this thing, I'm going to try it. It might not work. I'll accept if that doesn't work, and then I'll learn from it. And I think that's great because I think a lot of people would just be 10 years from now going, you know what, I really wanted to start that conference and I never did.
Yes. And I think I'm learning more and more that when we're going through something, so anybody that's starting their organizing business right now, there's so much overwhelm and there's so much knowledge that has to be learned and there's so many skills that have to be perfected. And when you're in the middle of that, sometimes it just feels not, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like it's meant for you. It doesn't, there's just so much questioning that goes on in so many moments throughout the day. But I am realizing more and more, and maybe it's just the older I get, that those are the defining moments.
Mhm.
Those are the moments that are, as long as you can stick with them and feel uncomfortable, that's where your resilience comes from. And I am extremely uncomfortable right now. Not on here, but I am very uncomfortable with what I'm doing. I question it constantly, but I just keep moving forward. And so I just can't help but think that it is going somewhere.
I think you've just said something incredibly important, which is the concept we do not like being uncomfortable. None
Mm-mm.
of us do. And sometimes going into that discomfort is the only way that you have real growth. And by the way, sometimes that discomfort doesn't go away. It doesn't go away, or the thing isn't magical, or it doesn't work, or you lose money, or any of the things. But that being in that zone of being uncomfortable, if it's comfortable all the time, something's gonna tip. Something's gonna tip in the wrong direction, I think.
Yeah. And you're so right. And the journey and the tough moments, those are what count. It's not that end result. That isn't where the growth happens. The growth happens all along. And if we can stay focused on that, and if we can stay somewhat grounded and not lose our minds in between, if we can focus on that, the growing pains as such a positive thing, I think it will get a lot of people through a lot of things. I know right now I'm really trying to keep that mindset that
Yeah.
the uncomfortableness is what I'm going to look back on and be able to talk about as my story. And it might be able to help somebody else, but in the moment, it does not feel good.
I will also say that discomfort that we're talking about, so you're talking about it in a much bigger sense, right? Like you were trying to
Yes.
figure out what that thing is that lights your fire, and you think it might be, kind of this big thing that other people that are listening to this might not be thinking about, right? But I would argue that the discomfort that we're talking about could be as simple as I don't want to send an email to my list because you've been there too. Who hates sending emails more than you? No
I
one.
do.
You hate it.
I hate them more than I hate them.
but you do them, and that's a level of discomfort. So sometimes it's the discomfort of something individual in our business. I hear all the time from people, okay, I don't have enough clients. Cool. Have you done this, this, and this? No. Why? Well, I don't want to bother people with an email. I don't want to, I'm too afraid to go networking. There are just, a list of things that are in that discomfort category. And I would just argue that you got to do the thing. You got to do the thing
Yeah,
because there are elements of all of our business that we don't love.
it's
And
very true.
if
There's
you
a
don't
lot.
do it, then business may not be for you. And that's an okay decision too. But that's where you actually get that growth.
Yeah, I'd be curious. I'm going to ask you a question. So when you say, if you can't get past some of that uncomfortableness and doing the email newsletters or the blogs or whatever it might be, and maybe business isn't for you, is there like a online test or something you can take that will tell you the answer to that
No, and
question?
I should back up and say, I don't mean to sound harsh. Like I really, I want to encourage as many people as possible to get into this business because I truly love it. And like,
Yeah.
if we're being honest with you that it's not a panacea, right? But in general, I think this is a great business to be in. But it also might not be for everyone, and that is okay. It's okay to be like, you know what? I love organizing. I just want to go work for someone else's team. Or no, I want to do all these things that make me an entrepreneur. And so I'm willing to either find someone that can do it for me. I'm willing to pay someone to find, to do it for me, or I need to find a way around it, or I need to get past the discomfort. No, that's a great question about like we need like I call it the X factor. So when I'm
Yes.
working with people, I will just have a feeling about like they have that X factor that doesn't have any sort of statistical, basis for it, but I can just tell like that person is gritty and I think that they can plow through
Yeah.
challenges and I think that they'll have setbacks, but they'll be able to get through them. They'll have the panic moments, that type of thing. And then there are some people that you just need to know yourself well enough to know you may not be that person, and that is okay too.
Yes. Yeah.
There's nothing
That
wrong.
that is true.
So that's not my jam.
So another area of thought that I have really been noodling on recently, and that is, what does organizing mean to me?
Hmm.
And in year 3, I think I started to question some of the Kool-Aid that I had drank as far as the products and the systems and the labeling and the this. And I have a few clients that I go back into their homes and I see some of the mess that is been made of what I left.
Mhm.
And it's got me really questioning what organization truly is. And if there is, well, we've all said there is not a one size fits all. There just isn't. And I would say it's probably less than 10% of society can actually upkeep what a professional organizer that's going to go in and make everything look pretty, they can actually upkeep it. And I'm just making up shit. So, come at me. I don't care. I think I started to realize that the focus has gotten so far away from what is the actual reason why we have chronic disorganization in our homes. And that is too much shit.
Too much.
And it, and listen, I'm the first person I've got a burn pile out back, and I'm not even going to tell you some of the stuff I burn because I'd probably go to jail. So I am not out here just
By the
like
way,
trying.
benefit of living in the country. Those of
I
us who live in
know.
the city are like, what's a burn pile? Anyway, go on.
Oh, yes. I am really, maybe that, you know what? I'm coming to something here. Maybe this is why I'm struggling so much with organizing right now in my business, because I need to get the point across that you need less stuff.
Mhm.
It's not, my pantry keeps getting out of control. No, you have too much food.
Yeah.
You
You go
don't
to
need
Costco
that much
3 times a
food.
week.
I think it's important as organizers that we treat every client different and that we have to be prepared to not jump in with a bin or a basket or a label. We have to be ready to jump in and say, listen, I can't, we can't move further in this project until we go through your things.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to stand firm in that, because I have organized and it's so much clutter and it's pointless. I've wasted clients' money and I think I feel a little guilty about that.
I told someone the other day that, and I have the luxury of doing this because my full-time job is pro organizer studio, and therefore, organizing, as I've said before, is my side hustle. I take on projects that are interesting to me or frankly that are highly lucrative. And I said to someone the other day, I said, I can always tell when I need a break from organizing jobs because I start to get exactly what you're not supposed to be, which is I get judgmental about people's stuff. I
Mm.
start to go, why do you have 50 bath towels for two people? Why do you have, I saw a thing on Instagram the other day that I had to scroll past. By the way, I've taken Instagram off my phone. We can talk about that if we want to. I do not have Instagram on my phone right now.
For you.
And by the way, I'm surviving just fine and I feel great. But I saw something on Instagram that was someone that was like, okay, what Stanley are we taking today? She probably has 100 Stanleys. I'm not even exaggerating. She has tchotchkes for them. She has, a whole, all sorts of things. I mean, it's tens of thousands of dollars. Okay. And I'm like, but why? What? But why? And I know the part of the answer is because she's an influencer and she gets a lot of views from this and whatever. But I'm like, no, when you're in someone's regular home, I see that a lot too, you know?
But that's what I'm saying. Yes, I have
And
a
then I
small
go, why do you need 75 Stanleys? Nobody needs 75 Stanleys, you know?
no.
And so then that's when I know that I need to take a little bit of a break from organizing, is when I start to get tweaked a little bit on the why am I having to try to organize this much stuff?
But you make a really good point. She's an influencer. So
Yeah,
all these people that
a,
are watching that see this one little part of her home that she's already made perfect. And I call it, hide the mustard. Let's make it all look perfect. And then after we're done taking our pictures, we'll put all the ugly shit back in. But that now, so people then just start, okay, I want to feel good today. So I'm just going to go buy 20 Stanleys that are all pretty colors.
yeah.
And that's, yeah, it's
It's the stuff
it's the
problem that
stuff.
we have, particularly in the United States. I'm sure it translates to other parts of the world as well. But that is a hard part about organizing. And then you just have to decide, like, philosophically, am I okay with that? And you might not be. Or you need to find the correct ideal client for you, which is someone who's like, I
Yeah.
have too much stuff and I need to downsize.
And hey, I'm not judging any influencers that are making money out there, even the organizers that are showing all the cool things you can do with product. I mean, you're earning a living. We're all responsible for our
Yeah.
own actions. So that's not what I'm not shaming them, but we have to be responsible for what we feel like we can manage in our homes. And, it never fails. And it's getting worse and worse. When I talk to a client on the phone, we talk about what's going to happen when I get there. Well, how many bins should I buy before you?
What do I need to get before you get
What
here?
do I need to, okay,
Nothing.
where did it become? That's the only way to become organized. And that's where it's totally everything. The message has been completely changed and it needs to just needs to refocus to the core and the guts. And that's, you got to get rid of some stuff. Stop buying so much stuff.
I am also pro product when it makes
When it
sense.
makes sense. Yes.
I'm very, because there are things where you're
Yeah,
like,
sure.
this drawer freaking needs a bit. I gotta have some boundaries. I gotta have some
Yeah.
yard. I gotta have some, like, there are places where it's critical. And then you have the client that's like, I don't want to buy anything. Oh, just like really
Can't
$100 at
we
Target would be
like,
so
yeah,
transformational for you.
drawer
Fine. But
organizer, something.
there's a difference between I need $100 at Target and I'm going to bring $10,000 of product to your house that I personally, that doesn't work for my personal practice. And I just can't feel good about that anymore. I'm more on your train of I can't wrap my head around that.
Okay, well, I'm glad it's not just me. And so I think, yeah, I'm definitely in a transitional phase at the moment. I am absolutely still love connecting with women, especially. And I mean, I like Chad, he's cool, but I really enjoy the connection that, and I'm not saying like I just like to go like on girls trips and all that kind of stuff, but just like the raw moments, I really get pulled into that, especially with my clients. And I sorry, I kind of went down
No,
a
that's
path. I
okay.
can't remember where I was going with that. But
Try with every client to try to find those bright spots, right? Even someone that's just like, I just, I'm just thinking about a client that I'm going to this week who the first time I went there, she goes, just super matter of factly, I'm going to tell my husband I did all of this myself. And I'm like, okay, you can, whatever works for you works for me. And she is having me come in because she wants to talk her husband into a renovation that he doesn't want to do because he says they have too much stuff. And so she's like, I want to downsize the stuff so that I get my renovation. And I'm like, I'm team wife all the time. Like, no problem. I'll come in
right.
and whatever you want, right? Like, and so
Yeah.
that type of client, like, I think I have maybe spent a total of an hour with this woman. That's the total amount of time I've ever spent with her. She's very much a like, I don't want to be involved with you kind of a person. I try really hard, even with those people, to like find those moments, right? Like,
Hmm.
I would like this woman to be able to do a very expensive renovation if that's what her little heart desires, right? But the joy doesn't come, the joy for me in that case only comes from sending the invoice. The joy doesn't come in the like, I have really done some like transformational work
Hmm.
today. And I think for you and me, that's something that's more important.
Yeah. And maybe that's my message right now is to any organizers out there that are maybe not sure why they're either not enjoying it because maybe they're working with the clients that need to downsize and they want to just do a nice pretty pantry. There's the space for them as well, but I really would like to just, as organizers, I think we really need to make sure that we're understanding what we're walking into and we're
Yeah.
not making the problem worse. And I'm feeling very passionate about this. So maybe I want to educate and I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think the thing, and I will put a caveat in here because if someone's listening being like, wow, they are being really bitchy and judgmental on this podcast this week,
Oh
that's not
yeah.
the intent.
So sorry about that.
It's not
This
the
is all about a
intent.
me growth thing.
We're just talking about what we're trying to figure out in terms of the joy of what what we want to bring to organizing and just trying to be
Yes.
honest about what lights our fire. And it's not to say that it's not valid for someone to just want $10,000 worth of product in their house if that's what they really want. I just am not that, or I'm not the organizer for them in that case. And I just remember like the one time that it really just absolutely pinged my brain so hard was the Khloe Kardashian episode of Home Edit. I think it was first season. It definitely was because I didn't watch the second one because I couldn't handle it. But I just remember it was tens of thousands of dollars worth of bins and it was like jeans in the bins and the whole thing. And I just was like, we're just putting our shit in more shit. So it's a way for people to keep buying things. But they're like, but I'm buying something that's good. Sort
Hmm.
of. But
Yeah.
you're not, to your point, you're not addressing the deeper problem.
Yeah. And that a majority of the people that reach out, there's a deeper problem. I was just recently, the local news did just a quick little segment on me and they asked, can we link? Do you have a page on your website where people can go and see all the products you recommend? And I said, you know what? I did have one of those and I took it down
Yeah.
because that's not the solution. The solution is you're turning your home into a landfill and that is what needs to be addressed. So at least, and maybe it's just my area, my region, I maybe other regions it's different but I would say probably at least 75% of the clients that I've been around, it's not a bin or a basket, it's a garbage bag and a recycle bin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have found myself lately, back to I think this is a gift that you give yourself as you get further along in the business too. And I know we kind of addressed it earlier, but being able to have the fortitude to say, I'm not the right person for you to those people. Like I did that the other day.
Mhm.
I had kind of gotten, and I know you have been through this too, perhaps very recently, where you say yes to something that you're like, my gut's telling me I shouldn't say yes to this. And
Mhm.
I totally did that a few weeks ago. I told someone, even though we did the consult, and I'm like, I don't wanna. It's not only physically too much, but I just can already tell this is going to be like, no, I need to keep that paper clip, the kind
Mhm.
of I was like, I just don't think I'm at a place right now where I have that level of patience. I'm a good person for that usually, but maybe not right now. But I was like, yep, sure, I'll schedule your appointment. And as it came closer, I'm like, I can't do this. Like ethically, I know that I'm not going to love that time. And I want her to have an organizer that is 100% happy and
Mhm.
invested for her to be there.
Right.
And so I went to her and I just said, I really need to, I'm going to suggest XYZ person to you because I think that she's an absolutely fabulous fit for what you have going on. And that's a hard conversation to have for some people, me included, because
Well,
I hate confrontation
yeah.
of any kind. And I hate
Well,
disappointing people. But I have started to get some freedom from saying no.
I love that. And I think that I recently just had two. One I said yes to, and we had a conversation, and I fully regret it, but I'm going to see it through. And the other one I said no. And
Yeah.
for the first time, was like, oh, that felt amazing. It was a
It
lot of
actually feels
money.
good.
It was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And that would have been great because my year has not been good so far. But I know I turned it down. And yes, there is freedom in that. And yeah, I think for new organizers, especially, stay focused on why you're doing it and try not to mix your actions with your, don't let your actions and your why be totally opposite
Yeah.
because that is not, it's not a good recipe for clients or for yourself. So staying true to why you're really going into the organizing business, I think is really important because there is a need for all of us. There
Yeah.
is, and
100%.
there's a need for a lot of us.
You know what there's
And
also a need and a time for? A time for to go, that's a $5,000 project and I need $5,000. And so I'm going to
yes,
say, you know what, this isn't going to be my favorite project,
but I'm
but
going to do it. Yeah.
I'm gonna do it, right? So
Hmm.
it's, I don't want to spread fairy dust here that like you can just only look for your perfect, most ideal client and you will have a hundred
No.
thousand dollar a year business. That's not what I'm trying to say. But you do, if you have the ability to get more selective and you can really hone in on this is an ideal project for me, this is an ideal client, and I need to say no to the other ones
Hmm.
because I'm not the right person for them. If you can get that freedom without causing financial harm to yourself, I'm for it.
Yeah. And growth is going to happen with the ones that you take that you really didn't want to, or the ones that you had to. Growth is going to come from those. You're going to learn and you're going to, if I wouldn't have taken some of these clients last year that really started to open up my eyes, even though they're not clients I would want to do again, it really started to help me understand what the part of it that I loved and the part of it that I wanted to make sure that I communicate.
What are some projects that have excited you last year?
So my favorite is the downsizing of the 70 plusers. They're my absolute favorite clients in the entire world.
Yeah. You
They
have
don't,
one that is like extra special too.
oh my gosh, Catherine, she just moved. I've done 3 70-year-olds in the last year, and the stories they tell and they are ready to let stuff go. They don't care about bins and baskets. They don't ask what they have to buy. They're my favorite clients.
Yeah.
And they need it. They need help.
Yeah. They
And,
really need.
and what you learn from them and what you see of how holding on to things can get you to a point of having to hire somebody. There's so much knowledge that comes from working with these older women that is just priceless.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work and usually it's stinky, but it's not, there's no overthinking that goes on. It's just real raw help. And that brings me at the most joy out of all of the jobs.
I did a talk at a very nice retirement community not that long ago, and it was a luncheon where people were thinking about moving in, and so I was talking about the downsizing process and things you want to think about and all that kind of stuff. And it is interesting to me that the stuff can really hold on to you though. Like
Hmm.
someone really does have to be some of that age range, I think really does have to be ready though, because it is
Yeah.
it
Oh
hangs
yeah.
over your head. And
All three of my ladies they were ready. It was
you
how
have
quick
to,
can you get here?
yeah.
Yeah. And when they're ready. And then that's how I like to roll.
But I think that's another thing. Like it kind of I think you and I are trying to talk more about like those projects that are really personally meaningful or like you really have created like major change in someone's life. And I think one of the hard things about this job is you hear a lot of stories. Personally, I hear stories sometimes that just really bum me out, right? Or you just go like, oh, I would like to be able to help you get past that. Like, I was talking to my neighbors yesterday and they're like, oh, we got, three adult kids stuff in our house and they won't come pick it up and whatever. And I was like, just gently going like, here are just a couple of ideas I use with my clients. Maybe these might work for you. And you just hear stories sometimes where you're like, oh man, I'd really like to help you get out from underneath that.
Eh,
And not
that's
everybody's
how I
ready.
feel. I want to do that. I don't want to do the physical part. I just want to educate.
Yeah.
Another message I want to make sure I get out there to anybody is don't compare your third year with my third year.
Yeah.
Um, because you could be rocking and rolling and doing amazing.
Or
And
compare your first year to your third year. Or
yeah,
if you're a brand new organizer, please don't be like,
don't
well,
compare.
I just need
Yeah.
to get rid of everyone except for my ideal clients or whatever. Like everybody's journey is very specific.
hmm Because mine really, I feel, was a lot of my own doing. It was circumstantial with my life. And when I look back, I see where I dropped the ball. And I dropped it for a good reason. I had some
Yeah.
amazing celebrations that were going on that I needed to be present for. And that's just the bottom line. But that's why I also have my own business so that I
Yes.
can do that.
Lesson from that though is if you have those periods that you know are going to be like, so what you had this year is what I had when my daughter graduated a couple years ago.
Yes.
Graduation and then I had a ton of people in town and then I was going to France and then I had, blah, 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 all the things, right? And I had a very large chunk of time when I was basically not doing any work. And that came home to roost, right? And so what
hmm
I realized, and I think you realized too, is you have to do the glory about this job is you can just take entire months off at a time if you want to. You
hmm
might also have to do some preparation for that and put some automations in place so that things are still happening behind the scenes. Like you cannot let your foot off of the brake or off of the gas entirely. There has to be a little bit of plan.
Yes. And you mentioned the automations, and for the first time, I think I'm ready to just have some of those. And I think you can turn them on and off. So
Yeah.
when I'm like in and present, I can just like be real time because I prefer that. That's how anything social media or newsletter comes out for me. It's the more authentic. I know that word is so overused, but it's the real Kim. But you also have to be realistic. And I think I'm ready to hop on the automation trail. I
Yeah.
think you even got a text from me the other day and said, well, all right, what am I using?
What am I doing? Tell me
What am
what I'm
I
supposed
doing?
to do.
Yeah. So yeah, getting the automations in is something that I think again, I preach this, you'll know when you're ready. You'll know when it's time. So, and you won't really understand how you need it, I think, until you need it. At least that's my belief.
Totally. What do you think, like if we were talking to 3 years ago, Kim, I've lost track. Was it 2021? Anyway,
Mhm.
whatever year it was.
Yeah.
What would she think of you right now?
I think that she would go, what in the actual F are you doing
I think she would not
right
recognize
now?
you, but I mean that in the best way possible.
Yeah, and I actually really like that you asked me that question because it's giving me a moment to think. First of all, I'd be extremely impressed with the things that I've tried. So I still love the podcast that my daughter and I started, but as you know, it's very time consuming. I know it's easy. It's easy to do a podcast. There isn't anything super hard about it. It's just tedious and time consuming.
Correct.
That has just been put on the back burner is the podcast. And then it evolved. So I've also would be looking at myself going, I'm proud of you for starting that. You're going to
Yeah,
have to start it back up and you're going to have to get a schedule because if I'm looking at myself from the outside looking in right now, I'm looking at myself starting a lot of things because I'm excited about them, but it's a lot. So putting on starting a whole new I had to start a business for this women's event. So starting a whole new business and coordinating that event and having a podcast and having your own business and then Chad's construction business, doing his social media, that's a lot.
It's a
I
lot of
mean,
work.
that's more than a 40-hour week job.
Yeah.
And so I think I would be telling myself, you really need to schedule your time. And that even though you don't have to be somewhere, you have to be at your desk or you have to be doing this. So setting boundaries for myself and sticking to a little bit of a schedule, I think is something that my younger self would be saying, well, why don't you just try that?
Yeah. When you
But
have
I think
multiple things like that, dividing your brain is very hard.
it's, well, and at our age and what our bodies are going through, dividing your brain is a really good way to put that. Because I spin my wheels a little bit sometimes, like, oh, I need to go do my keep or toss thing on social media. Everybody loves that. I haven't done it in forever, but it's like, oh, I should hop on and do a keep or toss. And then I get distracted. I'm doing something else. And then I'm like, oh, but now my makeup's off and I don't want to go on without makeup because I don't want to look at myself without makeup. But yeah, it's really easy to get the momentum going to start things. It's another thing to complete them and to stay committed to them. And I'm learning how to do that. But I
Yeah.
think overall, I would be okay with where I'm at. I think.
Yeah. It's
Does
an
that make
evolution. Yeah, absolutely. It's an evolution. And I think that 2021 Kim would be like, I, I didn't actually do that. Are you kidding me? I did that? That's amazing. Like that's what I see.
I figured that out.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think that she would be amazed at the things that you have done. And I think that all of us, you and I have an interesting thing in that we've done this every single year, right? So you
Yeah.
have something you can literally look back on. But I think if all of us were really honest with ourselves, like if I looked at myself as a baby entrepreneur, I would be like, first of all, she was so naive. She was adorable. She was so naive. And also that I think we should all be proud of ourselves that we stick it out because it'd be very easy to be like, you know what, I'm throwing the towel in. You have one tough day and you're like, whatever. And I
Yeah.
that doing that retrospective, if you haven't done it, I think is really good.
Learning how to encourage myself like I encourage others is something that I come to a realization that I was have not done for myself in all ever. And I'm in the process of learning how to do that. That's not something that comes naturally to any of us. It's so easy to talk ourselves down. It's a defense mechanism, and learning how to give myself the encouragement that I need is a challenge, but something that needs to happen.
I heard somewhere, probably the internet, like if you talked to yourself the way that you talk to other people, or turn that around of the things you say to yourself, would you imagine saying those to someone else? Like, man, you're doing a bad job. Oof.
What are you
Are
thinking?
you? What is that? You would never do that, right? I mean, maybe someone would, a jerk would, but like the way we speak to ourselves or the lack of credit, sometimes it can be not even negative self-talk, but the lack of credit we give ourselves
Hmm.
sometimes. Like, would you say that to someone else? No, you'd be like, oh my gosh, you have killed it. You have done such a great job. But we
Hmm.
don't give that back to ourselves.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. And when you are starting off in your business, standing tall and not feeling like you aren't ever going to amount to maybe an organizer that you look up to. And there's the small percentage that don't have that imposter syndrome. And I'm like, girl, more power to you. I
Who are
love
they?
that.
I would love to know who they are because
There's got to be a few, but yeah, pushing yourself outside of your boundaries is, I think, an important step to any growth within your business for sure. And
yeah.
I just think, Melissa, there is no way. Oh, I need to say this loud and clear because I want anybody to know that you literally could join your course and you did not know I was going to say this. I need to like preface that.
Oh, I didn't like set you up for this.
No, your course is what has allowed me to do this event that I'm doing. I learned so much on the foundational pieces and how those foundational pieces affect certain parts of business and they don't help certain parts of business. There is no way. This course would have been, even if I wasn't an organizer, I would have learned so much. First of all, I would have learned about search engine optimization. I would have learned about the importance of keywords, which is SEO. I would have learned the importance of when social media is beneficial and when it is not, the importance of getting people's emails and why are you getting them? Not just getting them, but why are you getting them? I wouldn't have learned how to segment things on Flowdesk. Like now I know when somebody opens up my emails and they click to go look at the tickets for my event, I have a whole segment. So I
Yeah.
know, oh, these people are interested. And so I can shoot them their own separate email. There is so much your course foundationally lays down how to get Google reviews, how to set up your Google. Like there is so much that you will use what you teach in the course in so many other areas of your life. It's not just about starting an organizing business, period. It does help because we're all organizers and it's,
we talk about organizing, obviously.
There is some huge foundational pieces that you teach, and I am so grateful. I mean, I would have spent $10,000 for your course knowing what I got from it. So
I'll send you an invoice for the other. I'm just kidding. I would never.
I wanted to make sure I mentioned that on this, because if you are listening to this and you aren't an organizer, but you think, oh, I might want to start like my own cleaning business, take her damn course. I'm telling you, you will learn enough to figure out how to start your cleaning business.
There's a lot of stuff in there. A lot.
Yes. A lot.
I appreciate that. That's very kind. And I'm happy to have been a teeny part of your journey.
Yeah. Thank you.
Take a drink every time I say journey. Just kidding. I am excited when people use the stuff that they've learned for other things, because that's fun too, because it is something that can stick with you. So, but I'm happy that you are part of our community. Very happy.
Oh, I'm happy to be a part of the community. I wish I could come on here and say I make 6 figures every year. I'm not going to tell you I do, but that's not because of Melissa or the course. That's because of my own personal bad habits or my own personal direction.
But to pat yourself on the back, you did have several months that were.
I had one. I had one 6-figure year. I did.
Yeah. You have done very well, so don't sell yourself short.
Yeah. No, you're right. But guys, the momentum, you got to keep the momentum going. Yeah. There is no quick, rich scheme thing going on here. No, this isn't, you can work 2 hours and go hit the tropics the rest of the week. That's a bunch of bullshit. And, I'm going to call it out right there. It is. Prove to me otherwise. So don't get into these little businesses thinking you don't have to work. It's a different kind of work. It's very rewarding. I learned so much.
I enjoy doing. You know what I mean? Like it's
self-development. You learn things about yourself, you challenge yourself. There's like so many great things that come along, but you also have to be okay. You know what? If it's not for me, like you said earlier, it's okay to go back. It's not failure at all. You have totally learned your limits and you have learned what will work for you and what doesn't work for you. So be okay with any direction you choose to go. Just don't do it out of fear. Just
correct.
Yeah.
And I would also say you have to give it enough of a try to determine whether it is or isn't for you. You can't decide after one client or 3 months or what. You have to give yourself some runway to decide, or even do not love,
or even a bad 6 months. I mean, we could all have a bad 6 months, but you could also have Chad's been a contractor for 20 some years. He had like a terrible 9 months. And I'm like, why? Like, I would have thrown in the towel like 3 months ago. And he's like, no, I've done this before. It's just stuck with it. And yeah, he's having his best year ever. So thank goodness, because one of us isn't.
Right. Well, you're doing something different. So you kind of touched on it, but you haven't really explained. Tell us about the Daydream project. Tell us about your friends.
Yes.
I'm excited about it.
Okay. It's and I know we've been on here a long time. I'm sorry. It's a really long backstory. So I will try and just give you the condensed version, which I am trying to learn how to talk about in my Make a Scene book, storytelling, because also people learn how to tell a story because it's good for networking. I have a huge draw to uplift and encourage women. And I don't know if it stems from having three girls that we moved a lot, and integrating into middle school, high school was brutal. And so teaching them how to be resilient, that was something that I had to do on a nonstop basis with them. I'm an open book. I was in a marriage that it was very toxic, and there was a lot of self-doubt that went into that. And I instead would just uplift other women, like we talked about. I didn't give myself the encouragement that I needed. I gave it to other people. But I also have found in this business, met so many wonderful clients and also so many other business owners. And I just keep hearing the same thing over and over. The woulda, coulda, shoulda's, I don't think I can do that. Maybe someday, or I wish I would have. There was just so much what could have been. And I watched myself over the last 4 years do something that I never thought in a million years I would do. And I finally just did it. And I just wanted to make sure other women especially my area, because we live in a small town, know their self-worth, that they know that their thoughts, ideas, and dreams are worth looking into, they're worth investing into. And it's not just about business. It's about, personal development. Maybe you're in a crappy marriage. Maybe you're looking for like, oh, it's okay for me to leave. Not that's what I'm going to be teaching, but so I have this all day. I started the Daydream project, and my daughter and I are doing it together. We have some incredible speakers. We have a full day packed. We have just going to be amazing.
This is not like a fly by night. This is not like a
Oh no, this
real
is,
speakers.
oh
You
yeah,
have real, like this
we
is
have,
a
yes,
very legitimate workshop
yes,
event to
yes.
help women dream bigger.
It's not a shopping event. I have zero vendors. It's an all-inclusive. It's not a sleepover party. We get there at 9 o'clock, and we have horse a mimosa, coffee bar, morning bites. We have speakers. We have a lot of surprises. And when I say our speakers, like the speaker that our main keynote speaker, Tara Renzi, coming from Kansas City, she's absolutely amazing. I've listened to her myself. I've read her book, and she is doing us a solid by coming all the way out here to speak to us. And then I have three other speakers. I have an MC for the event because nobody wants to hear me talk all day. And we have a DJ. We
Love it.
have an amazing catered lunch. We did our tasting yesterday. Of course, some photo ops. We have a wine bar. And then we have a happy hour at the end of the night. So all the speakers will be there so people can talk to them and ask them questions. And it's hopefully going to be one of many, but it is, oh my gosh, so many moving parts and pieces, things you wouldn't even think
Hard
of,
work.
like
Yeah.
how the day's going to flow, and the note cards, and what all the intros, and the getting the audio visual stuff. So you've got to have screens, and you have to have a stage, and you have to have insurance, and
Yeah.
oh my gosh. So you have to have a registration table and packets and name tags and swag, and uh, you have to have
So much work.
feedback forms, and like you have to have garbage cans. And the best part, you have to figure out how you're going to sell 200 tickets to an event that's never happened.
Yeah. Which, by the way,
And
you're doing very well at.
and that
You know
is what
how I
keeps
know
me up at
that?
night. I know
Here's
you
how
can
I
get
know
into
that.
my website.
Yeah, because
I can't
I
lie.
have access to your website because I did like one tiny, teeny, tiny thing for you. And so because I haven't like exited out of your website, every time someone gets a ticket, I get an email. And
Oh, do
every
you
time, you know
really?
why I haven't turned it off? Because every time I get an email, I'm like, damn, Kim is killing it. Because I
Do
get
you?
this new email saying a new order has
Oh
come in.
wait, I am
Good
dying.
for her.
Oh shoot, I'm going to keep that on there because now that's incentive for me to like really push it. All my
Yeah.
VIP tables sold out, so that was good.
Right. So I'm just
Yeah.
like, that's why I haven't exited out of it because I'm like, I want to see my friend absolutely killing it at this event that
Oh,
she's
good.
done before. So
Yeah. But everybody says that you don't sell like the bulk of the tickets are always within the last few weeks.
100%.
But, it's putting on an event to this scale is a huge price tag. And
Yeah.
finding sponsorships for something that's never happened before is a lot harder than I ever imagined. But somehow we just keep getting enough ticket sales or enough little sponsorships that we keep hitting all our markers. So we're
Yeah.
still, everything's looking good.
Awesome.
Um, but I need that. I want it full. I want a packed house because that's that energy. That's what yeah, you need that. So
Well, so it's Daydream Project dot.
.com.
Okay.
Yep, thedaydreamproject.com. There's an Instagram for it too. It's pretty much mainly local people in that, just because that's who's going to really come to it. If
Sure.
anybody does want to fly out of state, I do
Yeah, but
have.
if you want to come to, I can tell you from personal experience, Kim lives in a gorgeous area. It's absolutely
Oh,
lovely. Come
it's
visit.
out in the
That
country.
time of year is going to be gorgeous.
Yeah, it's out in the country. It's at a vineyard. The venue is breathtaking,
Yeah.
absolutely breathtaking. It is top notch and it's going to be fabulous. But they have these cool silos they've converted into a bed and like Airbnbs. There's like six of them. So these cool old silos, and there's like six rooms in them. And then there's the lobby area down in the front. Anyway, they've blocked them all off. So you can stay
Cool.
in the silos on site. And then I have two other people that have in wine country that have held those dates for like any groups, like friends coming and want to stay the night. So I have a couple of houses available too.
Yeah. So if you wanted to do something like if you want to do like a girl
Mhm.
retreat, just do it.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful
Yeah.
time of year, May 1st. And it's a
Yeah.
Thursday because venues are half price on Thursdays.
Yeah. Listen, I want to give a plug out there. Not even, this is just in general. So, like, if you have, for instance, been to the How To Summit or you have been to any other organizing event, and everybody, you have a right to, if you've paid for an event, you should enjoy the experience. But I would just tell you, take a hot minute before you complain about literally anything, because I can tell you the amount of time, energy, effort, money,
Months.
everything takes so much work. So just give a little grace because these are
Yeah. You
events.
know, I like that you mentioned that because organizers, if you go to the How To Summit, I've been twice and I got a little sassy last year and I actually filled out my feedback form and then I didn't put my name on it like a coward. And I felt so bad about it that I messaged them and I said, "Hey, I need to own up to my feedback form.
Yeah.
And if you look on it, there's going to be a smiley face up in like some corner, and that's mine. And I also want to say I'm so sorry because I see how much work goes
Yeah.
into these
So much
things."
work. And that's why people ask me all the time, like,
Yeah.
when is Pro Organizer Studio going to do a retreat? And I'm like, the 5th of never, probably,
The
because it's
fifth of never.
so much work.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of,
I admire people who do it because I used to do
yeah.
event planning in a prior
Yeah.
life, and it's hard.
Organizers out there, if you're in your business and you think, "Oh, I also want to do this little thing," do it because you learn so much and you learn how it can help your business. And I'm not out there promoting my organizing business through this. That's not what it's about. But it's making me realize how important connections are just
Yeah.
in general and how putting yourself out there in an unselfish way is it's always going to reap benefits.
You are a very giving person and you have been very giving to the organizing community. And I think that's why I got the sass on the DM from that person who's like, when is Kim going to be on the podcast? Because, there are people who have reached out to you and that you have been
I know.
so
Yeah. I still
helpful
get
to, and like you are so giving with your time where other people would be like, go fly a kite. And that's,
yeah, and I get the emails too, and there's one person that emailed me and it has gotten lost and I never responded. So if that was you
too
never got a
sorry.
response from me, I am so sorry. I cannot find your email anywhere and I am so so sorry. And then I've also gotten sassy a couple times. So I'm just going to say sorry for that. Sorry, not sorry, but sorry because I shouldn't be sassy. But when you ask me if you can use my "you don't need that"
Yeah.
saying, yes, you can use it because I don't have it trademarked, but I always encourage you to come up with your own saying. And then my keep or toss Again, I don't trademark it, but try and come up with your own creative way of
Yes.
organizing.
If you are going to appropriate something, I would also say please offer copious credit to
Oh, yes. One
the
gal
creator.
did, and she gave me credit, put me in the blog, and that was super sweet. So absolutely. Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah. Just don't take it as your own, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much more we could say about that.
I know. I'm sorry. I just like
Oh, you're
this
fine.
happens every
You're
time.
fine.
This is probably gonna be like 4 podcasts. Sorry.
No, I love it. Wait, we have covered so many things. I feel like you and I could probably talk for 8 hours.
We
Um,
wouldn't have anybody listening at that point, but
Nobody would be listening, and you and
no.
I would both have a bottle of wine open.
Yeah.
But I will put in the show notes where everyone can find you. You
Mhm.
are Rustic Home Organizing. On Instagram, you are rustic_home_organizing. You
Yes.
are at rhorganizing.com. You are at thedaydreamproject.com. You are all the places.
Mhm.
So
Yes. And
check.
if you go to Instagram for the Daydream Project, it's the Daydream Project event
Okay.
because the Daydream Project was taken by somebody that doesn't have a profile picture and doesn't do anything with it, but they wouldn't give it to me. So,
Well, welcome to my experience being home.by.11 because home by 11 was taken by like a 17-year-old who said
right?
has never done anything with the account, but I couldn't have it. So there you go.
Yep.
I feel you deeply.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
uh,
it was wonderful to be here today. And
yes.
thank you
And
for listening to my cesspool of my shit third year.
it's a growing experience. And that's okay. And guess what? You're still here talking to us. You didn't
Yeah.
say, I'm not talking about it because it wasn't my best. You're still here and you're still trucking. And I guarantee that we're going to be talking to you again, perhaps on a more timely basis in January of 2026, if we all survive
Yes.
until then.
Yeah. Yeah. And you might even hear me say, oh my gosh, on my Instagram, I'm totally booked until May. And I'm booked because I'm putting on an event.
Yeah,
So
right.
don't think at all that I'm just like killing it in my business.
Right.
And so, yeah,
She's booked because she's going to be in a coma, but she's still
exactly.
booked.
And when I do that, it isn't, sometimes it's the fake it till you make it. I have to just convince myself that I am doing so much better in my business than I really am because it just gives me a little boost of self-confidence. It's not me personally trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes, just to throw that out there.
Yeah. It's also sometimes to create scarcity in a client that's like, no, but I have to have you. And then you're like, okay.
Yeah,
So lots of ways you can use that. So
true.
thank you as always for being so vulnerable and open and honest and all the things. We
Of
appreciate you.
course. Yeah, I can't wait.